There is a man who never wrote a note, never sang a bar, never learned an instrument. And yet, for a stretch of the early 20th century, almost no song could be performed in public without money flowing through his hands. Restaurants, hotels, dance halls, radio towers. If music played, he collected. Composers who filled ballrooms nationwide sometimes couldn't afford dinner, while their melodies made him a fortune they never saw. He built a machine that turned the simple act of hearing a song into a taxable event. And then, at the height of it, an entire industry rose up to destroy the very thing that made him powerful. What they did, and how one broadcast changed the price of music forever, is where this ends. First, understand how the tollgate was built. To grasp his empire, you must understand a strange fact about music before him. Performing a song in public was, legally, almost free. A composer earned money selling sheet music, and once you'd bought the sheet, you could play that tune in a packed hotel every night and owe nothing. Songwriters watched venues grow rich on their work while they went hungry. The law technically granted a public performance right, but no single creator could ever police thousands of cafes and theaters across a continent. Enforcement was impossible. The right was a phantom. Our tycoon saw what everyone missed. The problem wasn't the law. The problem was collection. Whoever could organize the collecting could monetize a right that already existed, but had never been enforced. That gap was his entire fortune. Waiting. He came up not as an artist, but as an organizer, a man fluent in contracts, ledgers, and the cold arithmetic of leverage. His genius was recognizing that a single songwriter was powerless, but every songwriter pooled together was a monopoly. So he helped forge a society, composers, lyricists, and publishers who signed over the right to license their public performances collectively. Individually, they were mice. Bundled, they became a lion no venue could ignore. The society issued blanket licenses. Pay one annual fee, play anything in the catalog. And because the catalog eventually held nearly every popular song worth playing, refusing the license meant playing nothing at all. He hadn't invented the songs. He had invented the choke point through which all of them now had to pass. The first move was proving the phantom right had teeth. His organization sued. It targeted a fashionable restaurant playing a copyrighted tune for dancing diners, arguing the music helped sell meals, therefore the performance was commercial, therefore it owed royalties. The case climbed to the highest court, and a landmark ruling agreed. Playing music to enhance a paying atmosphere was a public performance for profit. That decision was the hinge of everything. Overnight, every hotel, every cabaret, every movie palace in the country was legally exposed. They could pay the blanket license or face lawsuits they'd lose. There was no third door. What had been a hopeless, unenforceable right was suddenly the most valuable leash in American commerce. And he held the collar. Now, watch the machine turn. With the legal precedent secured, his society deployed field agents, men who walked into establishments, ears trained, ledgers ready, listening for any protected song. They mapped the country venue by venue, and the licensing fees rolled in from tens of thousands of businesses. But here is the ruthless elegance most people miss. The blanket license didn't charge per song. It charged for access to everything, whether you used one tune or 1,000. That structure made the catalog's total size irrelevant to the buyer and total to the seller. You couldn't shop around, couldn't license just the songs you wanted. It was all or nothing, the purest form of monopoly pricing, dressed as convenience. The money then flowed back to members, but not equally, and this is where the empire showed its second face. Distribution favored the established, the already famous, the publishers with clout inside the society. A new songwriter whose tune became a genuine hit might receive a pittance, while a well-connected veteran collected steadily on a fading catalog. The tycoon and his inner circle controlled the formula that decided who got what, and the formula was opaque by design. Power inside the monopoly mirrored power inside the market. The strong compounded, the weak were counted but rarely rewarded. He had built a collective that spoke of protecting all creators, yet functioned as a private aristocracy. A striking lesson in how solidarity institutions quietly harden into gatekeepers, serving those already at the top. For over a decade, this worked flawlessly, and the man grew enormously wealthy on a percentage of a nation's soundtrack. But every monopoly plants the seed of its own siege, and his came from a technology nobody had priced in: radio. When broadcasting arrived, it was small, experimental, almost charitable, stations playing records to a handful of crystal-set listeners. The society waved it off, then thought again. If a restaurant playing music for diners owed royalties, surely a station beaming music into millions of homes owed vastly more. So he came for radio too, demanding fees that grew each year as the audience exploded. The broadcasters paid, grumbling, because they had no catalog of their own. That dependence felt permanent. It would prove to be his single fatal miscalculation. Because radio was not a helpless restaurant. Radio was becoming the most powerful advertising medium on earth, backed by networks with lawyers, lobbyists, and deep pockets. And they hated being taxed by an organization that raised its rates at will. Each contract renewal became a hostage negotiation, the society demanding a larger cut of a soaring industry, the broadcasters seething. For years, they capitulated because the alternative was silence. But resentment is capital too, and it accrues interest. The broadcasters began quietly asking a dangerous question. What if we didn't need his catalog at all? What if we built our own? The tycoon, drunk on a decade of unbroken leverage, pushed one demand too far, and in doing so, handed his enemies the only motive they'd ever lacked. When the next contract loomed, the society announced a steep new rate, confident the broadcasters would cave as always. Instead, the broadcasters did something audacious. They founded a rival licensing organization of their own, funded by the stations themselves. They recruited composers the old society had neglected, the overlooked, the regional, the new, and built a fresh catalog of music they could play royalty-free to their monopoly's rival. Then, at the deadline, the networks made their move. They pulled every song the tycoon controlled off the air. Not a note of his catalog would broadcast. For months, the nation's radios played only the new upstarts music and songs old enough to be free. The choke point had been bypassed entirely. Picture the tycoon's position in that silence. His entire fortune rested on the premise that his catalog was indispensable, that no venue, no broadcaster could function without it. Now, the most important customer on earth was proving, live and nationwide, that it could. The public didn't riot. Listeners hummed the new songs instead of the old ones. Familiar hits vanished from the airwaves, and the world kept turning. Every month of that boycott chipped away at the one thing he could never rebuild, the illusion of necessity. A monopoly survives only while everyone believes there's no alternative. The instant an alternative plays on 10 million radios, the spell breaks, and no lawsuit, no precedent, no field agent can restore it. He held out as long as pride allowed, then blinked. The society came back to the table and settled for far less than it had demanded, a rate cut deep enough to mark the end of its absolute dominance. The blanket license machine survived, but it was no longer the only tollgate on the road. A permanent competitor now stood beside it, and the mere existence of that rival capped forever how much either could extract. The man who had once decided the price of hearing a song in America could no longer set it alone. His leverage, built on the fantasy of being irreplaceable, had been broken by the simple demonstration that he wasn't. The empire endured in reduced form. The emperor's era of unchecked power was finished. The deepest lesson of his rise and fall is not about music at all. It is about the difference between owning a thing and owning access to it. He never created value. He positioned himself at a choke point through which existing value had to flow, and for a while that position was worth more than any song. This is the anatomy of nearly every monopoly, not superior product, but control of a passage others cannot avoid, and it reveals the monopolist's permanent vulnerability. A choke point is only powerful while it's the only route. Innovation, competition, or sheer defiance can always dig a new channel, and the moment traffic finds it, the toll gate collapses into just another road among many. Necessity, it turns out, was the product all along. What did it cost everyone else? Composers won the enforceable right to be paid for their public performances, a genuine and lasting good that still supports songwriters today. But they also learned that a collective built to protect them could become a gatekeeper that ranked them, that a fee designed for fairness could harden into a tax on the entire culture's soundtrack. Venues and broadcasters paid dearly for years before competition finally disciplined the price. And the public? We inherited a world where hearing a song in public is quietly, permanently monetized, a system so normal now we never question it. One organizer, one court case, and one boycott built the invisible economy behind every note you'll hear in a store today. That's the story of how a man who couldn't play a single instrument came to own the price of music itself, and how the most powerful customer on earth broke him by simply refusing to listen. If you found yourself rethinking every song piped through a cafe or humming from a radio, that's exactly why this channel exists, to reveal the hidden machinery of power behind the ordinary world. We dig into the empires, the monopolies, and the ruthless moves, history politely forgot, one deep dive at a time. Subscribe to Magnates and Monopolies so the next choke point, the next tycoon, the next spectacular downfall lands right in your feed, because once you start seeing the toll gates, you can never stop noticing who's collecting. Turn on notifications. The next empire is already rising.